Good evening and welcome to the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine's annual dinner and fly-in. I'm Janet Lambert, the CEO of ARM, and it's my pleasure to be your host. As you know, events like this take a village, so here at the top I'd like to thank some of the people who made this whole day and the whole 2 days happen. First and foremost, Chelsea Hathaway, there she is, Laura Parsons, Bethany Cranack, and those three received essential support from Lindsay Skull, Michael Werner, Maury Ruffin, Caitlin Donaldson, Miranda Franco, and Ethan Jorgensen Earp. So thanks to all of you for making this all work so well for the rest of us. 1 year ago, I was elected as the first ARM CEO at a board meeting on this very day, and I met many of you for the first time at this dinner. Bob Preti, Michael Werner, and Maury Ruffin took me around and introduced me to some of the board of ARM and some of the members of ARM, and I sat next to Jeff Walsh, who was a terrific dinner companion as well as a good advisor then and since that time. Together, since then, we've all had quite a journey. I thought it might be interesting to just detail sort of what ground we've covered in that time. In the last year, as Dr. Gottlieb said today, our sector has gone from amazing progress to amazing promise to an incredible reality. So at this dinner a year ago, we had no gene or cell therapy products in the US market, and today we have Kymriah, Yescarta, and Luxturna, thanks to ARM member companies Novartis, Kite, and Spark. As a result, patients with inherited retinal disease, large B-cell lymphoma, and B-cell lymphoblastic leukemia have life-saving or life-changing treatment options this year that they didn't have last year. Last year at this dinner, ARM was tracking 68 therapies in phase 3 trials. Today, that number is a third higher, with 93 products in phase 3 across multiple indications. Last year, at this time, we were tracking 855 regenerative medicine clinical trials. Today, there are 100 more than that, 952. At this meeting last year, our sector had raised $2.3 billion by this time in the year. This year's number is more than twice that, with $5.6 billion invested so far this year in the development of new regenerative medicines. At this dinner a year ago, FDA Commissioner Gottlieb had been in his role for 1 week. We weren't sure what to expect from him or this administration, and we had just 4 products with the newly created RMAT designation. Today, Dr. Gottlieb is an awesome champion for our sector and for safe and effective regenerative medicines. There are now 19 RMAT designations, and the FDA has an overarching policy framework for advanced therapies informed deeply by ARM and its member companies. Last year, we were publishing white papers on the specific challenges of regenerative medicine market access. Today, ARM and its member companies are in active conversation with an engaged CMS on how to adapt traditional payment systems to the modern realities of durable and even one-time treatments. Next year, I look forward to speaking to the growth in the number of patients positively affected by regenerative medicine. On my way in tonight, I had a conversation with someone in the back of the room who said that he had encountered a friend in Fargo, North Carolina, who had just come back from the Moffitt Cancer Center, having been saved from being very close to death by the administration of Yescarta. And I think By this time next year, we'll go from having the occasional anecdote to a much broader set of patient impact stories and data that we can share. Things have changed significantly at ARM too over the last year. We've moved downtown to an office with a bit more room and a better space for collaboration. We've created a comp and benefit structure to support full-time employees. We've added 3 new members to our team with communications, advocacy, and market access expertise in the US and in Europe. We've added 40 new organizations to the ARM roster of members in the last year. We've launched a new brand, a new logo, and later this week we'll launch a new website. We're strengthening our working relationships with bio, pharma, ASGCT, and others in the sector where common action can better serve our joint needs. And in just 2 weeks, we'll publicly launch the ARM Foundation for Cell and Gene Medicine. This foundation, an independent, affiliated 501c3 with its own board of directors, will serve as a central educational resource for patients, policymakers, and others interested in regenerative medicine. And I'd like to thank Stuart Parker and Marshall Summer and other foundation board members who've joined us here tonight. We have much left to do, of course, and we'll tackle some of our to-do list in the fly-in tomorrow, where we have a record turnout and more than 100 meetings scheduled with members of Congress and their staff. But for now, I appreciate having this brief moment to take stock with you of this wonderful, wind at our back, sun in our face year that we've all had together. With that, I'd like to introduce the ARM chairman, Bob Preti, who will offer his own welcome and introduce tonight's speakers. Bob?
Thank you, Janet. It's an n is equal to 1, and so I'm not making a cause and effect statement here, but we hired Janet. We could have hired many different people. We hired Janet, and look what's happened in the industry. So, just saying. You must have something on the FDA. I'm not sure what it is. I've now finally had a wonderful opportunity to experience a Broadway theatrical phenomenon called Hamilton. A central theme that runs through this remarkable story, and perhaps even more remarkable performance, is the revelation that Alexander Hamilton lived his life, even by the measure of the times, with extraordinary dedication, passion, and a tireless devotion to his cause. In a variety of ways, his supporting characters questioned, while for most people his accomplishments at any given time in his life or in any of our lives would have been enough, he continued to live as though he had no tomorrow. They questioned quite clearly, why did he write as though he were running out of time? He was conscious that history had his eyes on him, and the people that were there at the birth of a country as well. He knew at his core what was at stake, that they had to get this right. I was struck as I sat there by the similarities to where we are now. To be so fortunate to live during a time where we can bear witness firsthand, and we have the privilege to participate in the birth of a new form of medicine, one that holds unique promise for patients everywhere around the world. But what an awesome responsibility has come with that privilege. Patients afflicted with diseases that not too long ago were considered a lot that they and their families and society would sadly but simply need to accept. But these patients are counting on us as a community to get this right. And many of these patients are indeed running out of time, which is why they are so active, so informed, and so motivated. We're a long way from finding solutions to all of those afflictions, but each day we make steady progress. And through efforts of groups such as those that comprise the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, we are coming closer and closer to realizing our shared vision of a world in which these advanced therapies are accessible to all. Every day in our lives, we have the opportunity to collaborate. We collaborate with investors, with payers, with legislators, with regulators, with scientists, lawyers, technical operations personnel, engineers, educators, business people, doctors, nurses, other medical professionals, patients and patient advocates, and many more, all with one single commonality. We are working together to shape the future of medicine. Groups such as ARM have been intentionally created and formed for the specific purpose of convening and organizing this multidisciplinary set of extraordinary stakeholders. And we certainly recognize that as a team, history has its eyes on us as well. But it is our constituency of patients that has the most to lose, and they have the most to gain. They have the most to teach us, and they are in the best position to remind us of why we do what we do and why it is so important for us to get this right. We must work with them, and they remind us of this continuously, as though we are running out of time. Tonight, we have the distinct honor to hear from a group that includes an advocate and a parent and a patient. Our theme for this program is essentially, as Janet mentioned, it takes a village. That is that many stakeholders have come together to advance us to this exciting point in regenerative medicine. They will have a conversation that focuses on rare disease and Friedreich's ataxia in particular, while making broader points about the collaborations required to make therapies available to patients everywhere. Ron Bartek, who is co-founder and founding president of Friedreich's Ataxia Research Alliance, is both this advocate and a parent, a person who has been as deeply affected by a disease as you can be without having the disease yourself. Mr. Bartek's professional experience includes 20 years of federal executive branch and legislative branch service in defense, foreign policy, and intelligence. And following graduation from West Point, Mr. Bartek served in both Korea and Vietnam. Thank you for your service. He is chairman of the National Organization for Rare Disorders, NORD. For 4 years, he's been a member of the NIH National Advisory Neurological Disease Disorders and Stroke Council, and a former partner and president of a business and technology development, consulting, and government affairs firm. Following his remarks, he will introduce Jean Walsh, patient advocate, ambassador for Friedreich's Ataxia Research Alliance, who was diagnosed with this rare disease in 1981, and who will speak to her personal journey as a patient to close this evening. I have one request for you, which is to continue to work like we're running out of time. Thank you. Ron.